So I've been asked to chair this discussion today and reflect a little bit on the involving conversation that we've had so far. And I think that's what it's really been. It hasn't really been a conference or a workshop as much as it's been a discussion that we've all participated in and that we'll continue to do today with this last session. And when I was reflecting, I quickly realised that the two words Antipodean and China don't really pose a title for these proceedings as much as a process, a way to devise a glossary of terms through which we can talk about the synergies and the tensions between our individual fields and the wider concept of Chinese literature. Those who know me will know that I like to collage things, so I've cut and pasted together some of the terms in this glossary so that we can bring those into our reflections on yesterday into this final session today. Antipodean is a word commonly used to refer to something or someone from Australia or New Zealand, but more broadly two locations that are diametrically opposite each other on a globe. We travelled to those opposing poles, the light and the dark, the water rising up to meet the sky in the 6 hexagram of the I Ching, creating an unresolvable conflict. Conflict, East, West, universal, particular. We reflected on the role of literature and translation in these dark times and about how we can resonate with each other. Hexagram 31, how to achieve resonance. The resonating heartbeat of Lu Shan in an empty chamber, falling on the ears of a foreign writer who might hope to hear the echo of a Chinese imagination. An inland imagination that turns away from the sea, retreating to a refuge in a small town of 300 households, perhaps. I spoke to resident Gerald Murnane biographer Shannon Burns about the resonance with Murnane's work, an Antipodean inland imagination, if you will. I was reading The Plains a few days ago and recalled a line that says that anyone surrounded from childhood by an abundance of level land must dream alternately of exploring two landscapes, one continually visible but never accessible, and the other always invisible even though one crossed and recrossed it daily. Visibility, accessibility. We spoke about the parts of Chinese literature that are visible and accessible to the West and to China itself, and of these parts which encapsulate a quintessentially Chinese essence. Essence. Annie Ren quoted Pound and asked about the indestructible in poetry. A French woman sitting in an empty parlour, the light cracking into 1,000 pieces of jade. Like Noah Glass's sky, last night Gale began to sketch a dome that traces the space between Antipodean poles. A night sky which Shi Xuan looked up at in Western Australia and recognised as strange. And as Gale said, as writers, that's what we are always trying to do, look for patterns, asterisms in the darkness. And even with all this talk of darkness, I found myself staring off in thought, only to realise I'm staring at this banner at the back of the room telling us to seek light, to cultivate the universal heart and mind, to put it in John's words. In The Plains, Murnane's narrator concludes that as a creative, he is admirably equipped to explore this landscape and reveal it to others. A landscape both physical and literary, one dotted with cartographic asterisms, an Indigenous map of Australia not divided by north and south, but by song lines cutting across the land in all directions like cracks in the earth, leading in perhaps what Coetzee surmised on in terms of the Nobel Prize, an ideal direction, south. Alexis said that she doesn't know a Wanyee word for south, but the spiritual is everywhere. South, spirituality, symmetry, a sheet flung, a language and a literature opening. So yes, these are some of the glossary of terms that we've used to begin to unravel what we mean when we say Antipodean China. And this summary has done nothing but foment further reflection on yesterday's presentations.